There are stories in aviation that leave a scar, stories that echo beyond the wreckage and haunt every unanswered question. Air India Flight 171 wasn't supposed to crash. It had power, it had altitude, and yet, it fell. In the beginning, investigators pointed to mechanical failure, then pilot error. But now, new updates have emerged, and they change everything. Because what's unfolding is not just a technical malfunction, it's a sequence of events so improbable, it borders on the impossible. One that many experts are now calling a 100 billion to 1 anomaly. But what if it wasn't an anomaly? What if it was inevitable? Stay until the end, because what you're about to hear may shift the way you see air safety forever. Moments after takeoff, everything looked normal. The engines roared to life, the aircraft rotated smoothly off the runway, and its landing gear lifted with grace. But seconds later, lift was gone. The wings, designed to carve through the air, simply stopped working. Eyewitnesses on the ground reported a sudden drop, like the plane had hit an invisible wall. But here's the eerie part. Both engines were still running, or at least appeared to be. How can an aircraft lose lift with engines providing full thrust? Initial theories included catastrophic mechanical failure or flap misconfiguration. But as data rolled in, those ideas were silenced. The flaps were in position. The pilots followed every protocol, which means something else interfered, something that even the aircraft's sophisticated safety systems couldn't anticipate. Then came the sound. A strange, high-pitched drone caught on an eyewitness's cell phone video. It wasn't from the engines, it was the RAT. The Ram Air Turbine, or RAT, is a last resort system designed to deploy only when all other systems fail. It's not meant to come out at 400 feet above ground. It's not supposed to activate during climb-out. Yet, on this day, it did. And that's the red flag investigators couldn't ignore. For the RAT to deploy, something critical must have happened. Either a total electrical failure, a complete hydraulic collapse, or the most terrifying scenario of all, a dual-engine flameout. But dual-engine failures on a modern 787 are virtually unheard of. It's like flipping a coin and landing on its edge, twice. So what triggered the RAT? The answer might lie in the plane's blood, its fuel. Jet engines don't need much to keep spinning, just air and a steady flow of fuel. That's it. But if even one of those is disrupted, the entire system collapses. In this case, investigators started looking into a terrifying possibility: fuel starvation. Not because there wasn't enough fuel, but because something prevented it from reaching the engines. They called it vapor lock, a rare and deadly phenomenon where high temperatures cause fuel to vaporize before it gets to the engine. The pumps can't push vapor, they're designed for liquid. And when that happens, engines flame out, instantly. On the day of the crash, India was boiling. Temperatures climbed to 43 degrees Celsius, nearly 110 degrees Fahrenheit. That heat, combined with a quick turnaround, pressurized tanks, and hot asphalt, created the perfect storm. Conditions that could cause vapor lock in both engines, simultaneously. 1 billion to 1 chance? Maybe. But this time, it happened. There was one man who walked away from the inferno. Just one. A lone survivor who described a sudden bang, then flickering cabin lights, then silence. That single testimony might be the most damning piece of evidence yet, because when matched with the captain's last words, "thrust not achieved," it becomes clear. This wasn't just bad luck. This was a cascade failure. Everything that could go wrong, did. And the most haunting part? It may have been preventable. Fuel systems have safeguards. Ground crews follow strict protocols. Sensors are in place to detect contamination. Yet somehow, this slipped through. The question now isn't just what failed, but how it bypassed every safety net in place. And if this could happen to a 787, what does it say about the rest of our skies? Every aviation incident, no matter how technological, has one constant: humans. Human decisions, human errors, human assumptions. And Flight 171 was no exception. Investigators began retracing every step taken before the flight: fueling procedures, system checks, engine warm-ups. That's when they found a chilling discrepancy. The fueling log showed a completed inspection, but the ground staff's own reports indicated that the inspection had been rushed. The aircraft had been delayed earlier that day, and pressure was mounting to get it airborne. So, corners were cut. No malice, just routine fatigue, human nature. But in aviation, a single skipped step can open the door to catastrophe. The survivor later mentioned an unusual odor in the cabin, something faint, like burnt rubber or overheated plastic. And while it didn't alarm anyone at the time, that scent might have been the final warning sign of a system already under collapse. In the minutes leading up to the crash, Air India 171 was tracked by multiple radar stations, but at 1,100 feet, something strange happened. The plane vanished, not crashed, not descended, vanished. For 17 full seconds, the aircraft was completely absent from secondary radar returns. That gap may not seem long, but in aviation terms, it's an eternity. It's enough time to descend 1,000 feet, enough time for a system-wide failure, enough time for something unknown. And when the signal resumed, the aircraft was already in a nose-down spiral. Some experts point to transponder failure. Others whisper about signal interference, electromagnetic anomalies that have occurred in rare cases near volcanic activity or high-altitude storms. But there was no storm, no volcano, nothing. Just 17 seconds of missing time. Here's where the story takes a darker turn. Flight 171 isn't the first aircraft to exhibit this pattern. In fact, aviation historians unearthed 4 other incidents in the last 20 years, each involving sudden power loss, mysterious fuel disruption, and rat deployment within minutes of takeoff. Different airlines, different continents, same symptoms. They began calling it the black sky pattern, a profile of doom that until now no one had dared to formalize. Why? Because acknowledging a pattern means facing a new reality, that there may be a design flaw so deeply embedded in aircraft systems we've been blind to it for decades. And if that flaw is systemic, how many more flights are at risk? Just when it seemed the story had peaked, a confidential source from within the aviation industry stepped forward, an engineer who claimed to have worked on early versions of the Boeing 787's electrical fuel sequencing systems. According to this insider, engineers had flagged a potential fuel vaporization issue under extreme heat conditions over 12 years ago. But the risk was deemed statistically insignificant and buried under reams of internal reports. No updates, no recalls, just silence. That silence now feels deafening, because it suggests something more haunting than malfunction: neglect. A decision made not by nature or bad luck, but by calculated omission, by assuming the numbers were safe and praying they stayed that way. But Flight 171 proved that sometimes even the safest numbers betray us. Buried deep within the aircraft's black box data was something no one expected: a correction attempt. Not by the pilots, not by ground control, but by the aircraft's own flight management software. Seconds before the final descent, the onboard computer initiated a rare override, an automated recovery command designed to adjust pitch, throttle, and yaw to stabilize the aircraft. But it failed, not because the system malfunctioned, but because something overrode the override. Analysts reviewing the data found traces of a secondary protocol, one not documented in the aircraft's public schematics, a sequence that had never been triggered before in any recorded flight. One engineer described it as an autonomous ghost script, a last-ditch attempt by the aircraft itself to survive. This opens a terrifying possibility. What if the plane tried to save itself, but was silenced from within? Whether it was a glitch, a deeply hidden systems conflict, or something deliberately embedded and never disclosed, one thing is clear. The aircraft knew something was wrong. It tried to fight back, and whatever stopped it wasn't physics. It was code. Air India Flight 171 didn't just fall from the sky. It unraveled in silence, in data, in gaps we weren't supposed to see. For years, we believed aviation was bulletproof. We trusted the checklists, the engineers, the algorithms. We built planes so smart they were supposed to protect us from ourselves. But this aircraft tried to warn us. It flickered. It fought. It deployed systems no one programmed it to use. It whispered through the code that something was wrong, fatally wrong. And in the end, we ignored the whisper, because it didn't come through the usual channels. It didn't scream. It didn't fail the way we expected it to. What we all feared wasn't just a malfunction. It was the illusion of control. That belief that if we build something complex enough, it will save us, even when we no longer understand how it works. Flight 171 was more than an accident. It was a mirror, one that reflects not just a design flaw, but a systemic blindness, one that stretches from the hangars to the boardrooms. And maybe, just maybe, the next whisper won't be ignored. Because this time the machine screamed, and no one was listening. If this story shook you, if you felt the quiet terror hiding between the data, don't let it fade. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell so you never miss what they don't want you to see. And share this with someone who still thinks flying is just about lift and thrust.